I just want everyone in the room to just think about someone who in their life who has been affected by suicide. Chances are everyone had someone that came to mind. CDC, in fact, states that 7% of the total U.S. population is affected each year by suicide by knowing at least one person who has committed suicide in the last 12 months. It also says that for each completed suicide, there are 6 to 32 survivors of suicide, and those are defined as anyone who was a family member or a friend of that person who did commit suicide. As you can see on the screen, suicide does not discriminate against age, gender, or race, although there are some disparities between those. So annually, suicide attempts also affect society as a whole. Every year, $34.6 billion is lost to society in medical expenses and work lost costs. This averages out for each suicide, it's about $1 million. So now that we have those numbers in mind, let's just look at some of the suicide rates globally, nationally, and locally. Each year, there's over 800,000 suicides around the globe. That equals out to 1 every 40 seconds. 75% of these are in middle to low income countries, and it is the second leading cause of death around the globe in people aged 15 to 24. So right in the age group that we're in right now. Nationally, we're lucky we live in a country that is only 43rd, which is not too bad. Lithuania is number 1 with a very high suicide rate. We have a 12.1 per 100,000 rate. In the U.S., the rate of suicide in the U.S. for age 15 to 24-year-olds has tripled since the 1950s. That means 12 people in this age group will die today from suicide. In college students specifically, 1.5 per every 100 student will commit suicide during their college career. That means that there's 1,100 deaths by suicide in colleges in America each year. 6% of undergrad students and 4% of graduate students in the U.S. have seriously considered committing suicide or had suicidal thoughts during their college career. In New York, we are the third from the lowest state. We have a 7.5 per 100,000 death rate by suicide, so we're pretty lucky that we live in a state where it's not so common. Locally, it drops to 6.6 per 100,000 in Tompkins County. 25 deaths were reported at Cornell University. We were not able to find any on Ithaca College specifically, and that was in the last 21 years. The highest percentage of those deaths were 6 that were committed during the 2009 to 2010 academic year, and 3 of those were by gorge jumping. So we're just going to focus on the risk factors, the warning signs, and what we can look for, and preventative measures that are being taken nationally and locally to prevent suicide.
In 2013, 1/3 of all college students in the United States reported feeling depressed and having difficulty functioning due to depression, and half reported overwhelming anxiety. If you look at it in just our class, that's our entire lab group has had difficulty functioning due to depression in the last year. Mental illness is one of the largest risk factors among those thinking of committing suicide. Now let's all go back to freshman year. When it was your first time away from home, you have to leave your supportive friends and family, not knowing where to begin this new life change. Being in college, isolated from those that you love, in a new environment with homesickness and a culture shock, also concerned about college tuition and academic success, are major life risk factors for committing suicide. We all know also that college students are at risk for substance abuse and impulsive decisions, which also increases the risk. Other risk factors include history of family or friends committing suicide, previous suicide attempt, barriers to healthcare, and a recent divorce, loss, or a breakup. Now, looking more on the race and gender side, 90% of those who commit suicide are Caucasian. Men are 4 times more likely to complete suicide, and women are 3 times more likely to attempt suicide. One last thing about risk factors is social media. We all know cyberbullying is a real problem with feeling worthless, lonely, and alienated from others, but also social media, the way they present student suicide in the news. They give people new ideas on how to commit this crime, instead of promoting decreasing the stigma and giving ideas on how to help friends and families struggling with this. There's a national survey that said 20% of students who committed suicide sought help at the school's counseling centers. This shows that we need to do more to help and look out for the risk factors and warning signs for those that we love so they can get the help and support that they need.
So to touch on the warning signs, some are much more overt than others, but being able to identify as many as you can might help someday to help at least one person, and that matters. So first of all, a lot of people present that we feel worthless or hopelessness. They have no place in this world. Sometimes you gotta look for increases in drug and alcohol use, and this is a big one because drugs and alcohol are often recruited in the act of suicide. So knowing that somebody has access to these drugs and alcohol, it's a big deal. And if somebody blatantly says, I want to commit suicide, don't leave them alone. Wait for more help to come. Look for changes in sleeping and eating habits. Oftentimes will be a lot more withdrawn. They won't leave their room for hours on end, or they'll make very impulsive decisions. What else? No. So on top of that, blanking, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. So sudden loss of interest in something they care about deeply. It could be one day they love it, and the next day they could care less. And feeling like they're a burden on friends and family, people around them. And the means of suicide is a way to relieve that burden from the people they care about and also to absolve any guilt from the burden they're causing on people.
So clearly suicide is an issue and depression in our society. So what is being done about it? First, in 2004, the federal government signed into act the Garrett Lee Smith Memorial Act, which provides grants to colleges and universities to help raise awareness about youth suicides. Second, there's also, as you can see, many national foundations that their goal is to promote suicide awareness. Specifically, the JED Foundation and Active Minds target college students. So the JED Foundation was founded in 2000 by two parents whose college son committed suicide. And their mission is actually to promote emotional health in college students in times of need. Active Minds was established by a UPenn college student whose brother, and also a college student, took his life. And their goal is to promote student advocacy, to have students help raise awareness about suicide and risk factors. So they have many chapters at various colleges and universities, including one at Ithaca College, so where students get involved to promote prevention. So nationally, there are things being done, but what's being done at Ithaca College? We have the Center for Counseling and Psychological Services, also known as CAPS, which unfortunately many students are unaware of their services and unaware of where they are even located. So they are located on the ground floor of Haven Health Center with a private entrance facing the campus center parking lot. They provide free individual and group counseling services. And they report 16 to 17% of students will seek help through CAPS. So clearly 16 to 17% is a high demand for their services. However, currently they are facing staffing issues. They do not have enough staff to accommodate all of their appointments, so students may have to wait several weeks for non-emergency appointments, which may deter them from getting the help they need. Last year, CAPS requested to have a new staff member hired. However, they were denied this request due to budget constraints, so unfortunately, I'm afraid that some students are not getting the help that they need.
All right, so to bring it all together, based on the statistics, each and every single one of us in this room will be affected by it. I know I have already several times, and I hope it never happens again, but all this information we provided has the potential to be very powerful in deterring suicidal tendencies in people you know, love, or hate even, or see in a PT clinic. But potential is just that. It's a possibility, and without individual advocacy, our collective potential to deter future suicide is just it's just wasted. So I implore you today to don't waste your potential and try and make a difference in somebody's life.